All right, good morning and welcome to the TC Dojo from Single Sourcing Solutions. The TC Dojo is a TechCom community that is driven by you. Tell us what you want to learn. You choose the topics and we find the expert. In the Dojo session today, we are lucky to have Dr. Jackie Damrau as our visiting Dojo master. Jackie is a business process management analyst with Global Commercial Real Estate Company. She holds a doctorate in business administration from the California Coast University and an advanced professional certificate in business process management from the University of San Francisco. She holds certifications as an ARIS, Business Architect Designer Professional, a BPMN Professional, and Information Organization and Access Practitioner from AIM. She's worked in almost every industry: law, government research, development, mathematics, engineering, business consulting, telecommunication, and global commercial real estate. She has developed and delivered online learning, instructor-led courses, and workshops on business process modeling, technical writing, and business leadership. And even with all of that, she's a volunteer for the STC. She's currently serving as the web program manager and has previously been the newsletter editor, associate manager, and manager. And it has been my good fortune to get to know Jackie, and I'm grateful that she agreed to be our visiting TC Dojo master today. Now, Jackie says you can ask questions as we go, so be sure to type them in when you think of them. If you want to ask your question directly to Jackie, just put that in there and I'll unmute you when she reaches the next natural break. All right, Jackie, I'll pass it to you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Show your screen and it's all yours.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and as Liz said, feel free to ask questions. What this will be is how to write business requirements that are not agile, and I will kind of sprinkle in my company is going through an agile transformation right now, so a lot of what I have been doing is changing. And I'm learning a new way and researching a lot of new things about writing user stories and such, but still some of those writing principles for those of us that are writers still apply regardless whether it's a user story or a full functioning requirement. So let's get started. We're going to talk about the basics of what is a requirement, the characteristics of what makes a good requirement. There is a recommended 4-step requirement process. Briefly review some 7 points on writing clear requirements, and then at the very end I happened to, while I was putting this together, come across a checklist that I have put in the appendix that I may not get to today, but do download the presentation and you'll see all the information you want to know behind everything I'm talking about today. So requirements, we're going to discuss what a requirement is and the characteristics that make a good requirement. We hope we all write good requirements, but if you've ever worked with developers, they come back with numerous questions. What did you mean here? What did you want there? I have no idea what I want sometimes. So a requirement, it's an iterative instruction that reflects what the user will do or what the system will do. Of course, this depends on what you're developing. I am currently working for a team that is automating accounting services, paper-based processes that are done in Excel spreadsheets, and we're actually moving them to an online forum where there is no more Excel in their life. So that's what I do, and so I have a lot of the users going to do this, and the system is expected to do something else. And when you click a button, the system, depending on what you click, can go here, there, or somewhere else. So when you write your iterative instruction, you want to do it to complete a product or a service transaction. In my case, it's using an automated system. So if you go to the ATM machine, that's automated. You go to the grocery store to the self-checkout, that's automated, although there is someone there to help you. The requirement statement should contain a user role. So this is not any different really than a persona. It's who is the user. In my world, it's an initiator, and that initiator could be an accountant or a coordinator. It could be a supervisor. So whoever your user role is, that's who's going to get the benefit of performing the requirement, the desirable state that the user's role is to achieve. So are they going to submit something? Are they going to review something? Are they going to process something? And then a testability metric of where applicable. Not everything has a metric that you can put, but how often should they be, what is their system response time? From the time I hit something, I want 3 seconds for it to kick back, or 90 seconds to kick back, things of that nature. So a requirement ultimately is a single chunk of information that identifies a specific item, capability, characteristic, or quality that the user will use and value as enhancing their daily work output. So what is the user supposed to do and the applicable outcome? So characteristics of a good requirement. In technical writing, we have the 4 C's. You'll see them here: concise, consistent, complete, and I'm forgetting one. But in good requirement writing, we want to ask ourselves, is the thing that we're asking to be done, is it necessary? Not every action is necessary, so should it be included? Unambiguous. We want to use strong words without vague terms, and I'll talk about some of these in the coming slides. Conciseness, is it easy to read, but it needs to be easy to read, but convey the essence of what is required. Consistent, you don't want one requirement to contradict with something else later in the document. So in my case, I might have a workflow with 7 user steps in it, and from one to the other, if I'm using the same fields, I don't want one to conflict with what the other one says it should be doing. Complete, is my requirement fully understandable and without needing any additional content? So if you took just that one requirement as a developer, can you build me something off of that one requirement, whether it's one form field or one action button? Have I given you what you need? Achievable, can the item be implemented with the available resources and time? Our requirements, we have a very small team where I'm at, so we have to chunk our things into, can we get enough done in the amount of time that we have with the resources we have, or do we have to, in the Agile world, put it in the next sprint? We didn't used to do. We were waterfall, so we developed it soup to nuts, and then we were done. Verifiable, can the item be verified through testing, inspection, review, analysis, simulation, or demonstration? Also verifiable on my end is the information in the right SQL table on the back end, because our workflow, you put stuff in the front end, but the back end has to collect all the data for reporting measurements. So we have to verify that all that information is there, and that's part of our testing process. And then traceable, can I trace every single user requirement against something developed, against something tested, to say that we have a complete product? So 4 steps to a requirements process. We're going to look at, these are the business analyst requirement processes of elicitation, analysis, definition, and specification. So real briefly, the elicitations where you're gathering your business requirements, you're checking for clarity, consistency, and completeness for your analysis, you're defining the requirements for your developer or external vendor if that is who's doing your development, and then you're creating your initial what you would call business requirements document. My company, I'm in a unique situation. We don't even do a BRD. We go straight for the functional requirement document. And it's just a hybrid animal that this company tends to go on. So for the elicitation phase, where you're asking questions, you're trying to get down to the root of what does your business user want to do, what are you trying to help them create a new process or automation for. You want to ask active questioning to gather what their needs are, and you want to also always remember, are you in a regulatory industry or a compliance industry that you have to account for tracking information on the back end? For me, automating accounting systems or accounting services, we have to always be aware of SOC 1 compliance and then we have our own internal compliance group, and they require certain things, so we have to account for additional things that we did not originally plan for. There are technological ramifications sometimes depending on what the requirement may include. So I have an appendices if you want to know how to ask questions, ask the right questions to get the right answers. I give you an appendix with some questions of what to consider. While you're asking your questions, you want to maintain focus on defining what are the business's goals. So going into your elicitation phase, you want to have the business set up. What is the vision for the thing that you're asking requirements for? And then you want a potential, create a potential high-level user scenario that needs further exploration. This is where we might get into your personas. So I have an accountant, I have a coordinator, I have a reviewer, and I have a supervisor. What should they be able to do in this system at a very high level? For the analysis phase is where I'm preliminarily setting up to ask more questions. I'm going to ask the question, the business goals. Is this item required? If it's required, I'm going to use the words shall, must, or will statements. If it's optional, then I can say might want it, could have it. I generally never write any optionals. I only really want required, because optional, my developers go, well, I can give it to you any number of ways. So I am very specific in what I define. Measurable or vague, you want your questions to be measurable or vague. You want to avoid big, small, and friendly. They're not measurable. It's not a requirement if it can't be tested, and you want to determine the measurability with specific criteria. So you have to have specific information. So you want to ask yourself, is what you're writing measurable or vague? Singular or mixed? Compound requirements. Anytime you have the system will do this and something else, break it into two. Developers tend to miss things that have ands and ors in them. At least mine do. So I make sure I put anything that is an and. I make two requirements out of it. That way they can't come back and say they missed it because it's two separate items. Check off each one. I separate requirements by persona groups. I develop for this one group, then develop for this group, because that's what I want different things for. And I use lists if applicable. So definition, you want to agree on the users and the organization chart group names. Now, organization chart group names are specific to my industry and my tool that we use. But who are the users of the system you are writing requirements for? Again, it goes back to the personas. Are they an accountant, a coordinator, a reviewer, a supervisor? What are they? Are they? User is so generic, we identify them specifically by role. So we know exactly, we know what the box an accountant does. We know what the box a coordinator does, what those functions do. So we write them specifically for that persona. There's specific terminology that might exist. We define that up front for our developers to know that if we're talking about a financial statement review form, when we say FSRF, they know what we're talking about and they know what that form is. If you talk about, if you're in government industry and you have something that's on a defense system, you have to define specific terms. Identify any forms. Are there external forms, like we have a lot of Excel spreadsheets? We have to identify what those are. Are we automating those? If we're not automating those, are we attaching those to an item? Are we storing those somewhere and you're asking us to have our system go out to SharePoint and open that up so you can review it? Are you asking us to have Outlook open up and you automatically send an email from your Outlook instead of the system sending it on your behalf? These are the forms that we identify. Create a basic workflow diagram. Many of you may or may not do flow charting. This can be anything as complex as using Visio or using PowerPoint with boxes, circles, squares, and lines. That's all it is. You can get complex. you can get very simple. Wireframes or mock-ups. If you are doing a web form, or in my case, we're automating Excel-based forms, we have them do a mock-up. Now that we're going to automate this for you, you have the option to move things around any which way you want. It's like a web form, but you can have it a drop-down box. Do you want radio buttons? Do you want some fields required fields, others optional fields? What do you want? We need to know. And we want you, the business, to give us what you think the UI should be, so that when our developers are developing, they will get close to that. But as a BA with UI experience, I come back and go, I don't like where that is, let's move it over here, or can we do something different? Specification is when I'm working with the developers, you want to be able to provide detailed business requirements that describe the business goals. Provide your wireframe and mock-up examples. This helps them get a grounding for how they're going to solution the requirement you've asked them. So you want to automate something. In my case, here's what I have. You're going to come back to me with a solution, with a functional requirement document, and tell me, or a detailed definition document, and give me how you're going to serve it back to me. I want to review with the developer the regulatory compliance requirements that must be built in. These will be the things that this information must go back to a SQL table that I can later pull an SSRS report from to satisfy requirements, our compliance requirements. Or I need to do something else, have the information stored in a particular location. Is it a shared drive? Is it SharePoint? Is it Box? And lately it's OneCloud for us. So it's like, okay, in all these 4 places you have us putting stuff, where's the place you want today? And then you also participate in what we call technical discovery. You would call it your JAD session maybe, or your design document session. That's where we build a functional requirement document. So we go from a BRD to an FRD, and as I said, we normally don't have a BRD, because our FRD, our technical discovery session, is both. We build both at the same time. We have the business in the room, we have the developers in the room, and the business raises a hand and says, first hour they describe what they want, and then the developers take off and start solutioning right then and there in front of the business. We do it in one session. So writing good requirements, 17 tips very quickly. I'm going to go through. I'm not going to talk about all of them, but you want to define one requirement at a time, as I said. Avoid using clauses but, except, and if necessary. If necessary is vague. So what if I choose as a developer not to make it necessary? Okay. Does that meet your business requirement? You want to write your requirements in complete sentences with no buzzwords or unfamiliar acronyms. And if you are an industry that has acronym soup, or in the field of accounting services, I can honestly tell you we have a whole intranet SharePoint page that is nothing but acronyms. So we put them in and say, go see that web page if you want to know what it means. Requirements. All good writing should have a subject and a predicate. So should requirements. You want to discuss, not describe, what the system will do. So we as analysts should not be saying what the system will do. We should describe what we want it to do. Avoid ambiguity caused by words like etc., approximately, about. Again, those are not good words in a requirements document. Indefinable terms. User-friendly, versatile, robust, minimal impact. What do those really mean in a requirement? User-friendly can be, to me, one item can be user-friendly. To someone else, it could be not user-friendly. Rambling, long sentences, making references to documents not easily accessible. So if you reference a document and you have a hyperlink to it, it better be where you said it is. Don't make me go look in 5 different places for it. Collect them all, put them in one location if you want me to look at something external. Avoid duplication and contradictory statements. Again, this, as an analyst, you have to know if you're writing the document, you should have a feeling if you have a duplicating statement, but do some checks and make sure that one section doesn't contradict what another section says. It's most embarrassing when your business owner calls it out. It's like, oh dear, I didn't check that. Do not express suggestions or possibilities as commonly done using might, may, could, or ought. Those are not solid requirements. Again, avoid having requirements in different documents. Now, we might have requirements in 2 different documents for the fact that we have 2 different teams that we have to interact with. So I have one set that is doing the major work, but I have an integration with another system within our company, and I cannot have that other group requires their own requirements document, so I have to pull everything that's integrating for that one application into our application. I have to give them a separate set of requirements. So I do reference that other document, but I actually embed that document into my main requirements document so that anyone can get to the whole story. Positive statements, you want to use positive statements. The system shall or the system shall not do. You want to say what it should or shouldn't do. So the use of shall, will, and should are great because they actually define what should be done. And if you want more information, there's a URL here at the bottom where I took this information from the Business Analyst learnings.com blog. And we are right at a little bit of time for questions, so I'll turn it back to Liz.
All right. Thank you, Jackie. That's great. I notice, I'm going to switch back, you guys, and tell you what's coming up. We've got some excitement happening here in the dojo next month. We're going to come back to Jackie. She's got a lot of slides, and she gave them to us to put on the dojo page. So be sure and check that out, and I'll show you how to find it. So type in your questions. Upcoming in the East in DC in September, TC Camp is coming to you. This is a Bay Area must-attend event the last 5 years, and this is our 2nd year in the East. It's been called one of the things that work. Is if you're trying to keep up and learn and do things, TC Camp is all about you and your interests, and it's only $35 and coming to DC on September 9th. It's a Saturday. Our next mastermind session, we have 2 of these, actually 3 of them, about to start a 3rd one. One is TechCom General, one is Arbortext Focus, and one is going to be government focused, I believe. We're starting to work on that. It's a monthly member-driven discussion group where attendees present their specific challenges on topics going on in a confidential, supportive environment. These kinds of groups have been cited in Forbes as being extremely valuable to attendees. And if you're by yourself or you've only got a couple of people in your group and you don't always have people to collaborate with, having a bunch of people at your back can really be helpful. You can learn things and ask questions in a way that is very confidential and supportive and doesn't make you look crazy to the rest of your coworkers. Next month in August, we've got From Clashing to Collaboration with Andrew Lawless. There's been a huge push in the last year or so on introverted leadership. Andrew's going to talk about, how do you deal with different personalities, and he's going to give you a scientifically verified framework in order for you to learn how to collaborate better and to learn how to respond to people who are not always detail-oriented and like to jump to conclusions and are always in a rush, and how to do that without, feeling threatened in any way. It's going to be a really great session. Likely, I think he's doing, we just had confirmation, he's going to do a workshop at TC Camp East. So if you want to actually go through the experience and learn what your personality and how you deal with people and how to best deal with people of other groups, be sure to come to TC Camp in September. All right, where will the slides be for today's show as well as the recording? And what's coming up? How do you sign up for what's coming? Go to tcdojo.org, scroll to the bottom of the page, and you'll see all the things that are coming up. All right. Thank you, Jackie. We've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
We noticed one requirement. That seemed important. We've all seen scope creep or lost requirements when threads get complicated. And then you came back to that again. That seems like a big point. Yes?
Yes. Scope creep actually happens a lot with us, and we keep trying to rein it in.
Where do you see that happen most often? Like what kind of requirements?
It is any requirement, honestly. What happens with us is we will get after we have our technical discovery session, and we write up the requirements for everything we've heard, because we'll do a 3 to 5 day discovery session with our business. We'll come back, we'll spend a week writing up everything that we heard into requirements language. We'll present it back to the business to go, okay, here's what you told us you wanted, review it, and we want business sign-off before we task our developers to build. Business invariably will come back, well, we've thought about it, and can we change this, that, and the other thing, and before we know it, we have re-scoped or redrafted the entire 3 or 5 days we spent. They've totally gone some other direction we'd not thought of or planned on. So that has happened, and we have reined them back and said, that's great for phase 2. How about we just get through phase 1?
Right.
Now we will, depending on what some of the items are, we'll go, that's a great idea. We can certainly include that in this round. What would you like to take out? What functionality would you like not to have for us to add that? And that has kind of stopped them from trying to scope creep us before they even sign off on the document. Now, once they've signed off and they start seeing the incremental pieces of our development, because again, we are now entering this agile world here. Oh, well, we didn't think it was going to look like that. Can we have it look like this? Well, how about we get through, the first part, and then we'll let you change it. But don't change it every time we have a sprint review, for example. So we've seen it, and we try to control it. It's like, put those ideas, we have what we call a SharePoint icebox for each project. It's like, go throw your idea out there, and time permitting, we will bring them in. If not time permitting, that's the great builder for phase 2.
Wow, sounds a good way to rein in that scope creep, because that can be tough. All right, here's another one. Do you have any examples of requirements? One of our people is interested to see how much detail there is in real-world requirements. Do you have any examples?
I might have some out there. If not, if you want to have them email me directly, I can pull up some dummy ones.
I will save the question log. It seems like a good thing for a blog post, actually. So I will save the question log and send it to you, and you can post that up, and I will link to it from the project page. So Dave, make sure you're on the mailing list if you aren't already, and we'll make sure that you get that.
I have something else I did internally that I can scrub some of that stuff out, because a lot of what I have is going to be specific to my company, but I can scrub those down.
Okay. Dave, let me know if that's okay. All right, here's one. Good writing requirements. Many seem like good writing advice. Avoid rambling, long sentences, compound points, avoid acronyms and buzzwords. Does that sound right to you?
It does.
All right.
And actually, the question, if you go into the appendices, I do have some examples. They're minor examples, but I do have some.
Dave, yeah, there'll be some at the appendix, so make sure you come and pull that from there. All right, tcdojo.org. I'll leave the link to the page on there anyway. It stays up for the next month while I put the video up. All right, here's another one. It sounds like the requirements docs are a natural byproduct of a pretty standardized process that your development teams go through. Chicken and egg question. Did the writing help standardize the process, or does the process help the structure and content creation, if that's a fair assumption to make? Let me try that again.
Yeah, I'll read that one more time.
Did the writing help standardize the process, or does the process help structure the content creation of I'm guessing, the requirements writing?
Right. When I got here, actually, they had our vendor doing all the requirements writing, and after my coming on board, what they didn't realize, they were getting a person with years of technical writing background as an analyst. So I have actually crafted the process now so that they write the requirements the way I've found over the years I've been here that makes sense for our external development company and our internal developers to write against. And that also meets our compliance needs for traceability in how we do requirements. Again, I don't have a requirements tool like some people might use Rational Clear Case or any of the other requirements related tools, JIRA, those types of things. I'm relegated to a Microsoft world of a Word document. So I use tables out the kazoo, and I use all kinds of numbering conventions, but that's what I have to use, and it has worked. It has helped process, and it's like I can point to my developer and go, well, PWS1 is that requirement. Where is that in your code? I don't see it.
All right. Let me know if that sounds like the question got answered.
Yeah.
Bam. All right. One more follow-up. For those of us who just do the doc, what advice do you have for us to get involved earlier and maybe take over those business requirements docs? Great question.
That is, yes, that is working with, if you're in an agile world, working with your product manager or product owner to get engaged in that. A lot of it is just trying to show the benefit that you can provide early on, even if it's just sitting and listening to the conversations. If you're writing in my case, I am the analyst writing requirements or editing other people's written requirements, but I also write the help files for all of our applications. That was something that we were paying our external vendor to write for us, and whoever they had hired was not a writer. They claimed to be, but they weren't. And I took over and told my manager, why are we paying for this? I can write these better. I showed an example, and they include me now in the very beginning because I make it known. I use the requirements document to write my files.
Wow, this seems like a really great way for TechCom folks to get higher visibility and show more value to the company. That's a great idea.
Because you know, you can interview your SMEs, that's great, but if you have the requirements document in front of you of how they developed it, how they built it, you can get a large base of your content against that. And then the other thing that I do is I walk through my help file. It may be Happy Path solution for a help file because I don't go into every exception, but I test the application we're working against my help file. If my help file can't get you through it in Happy Path mode, it's not worth the paper it's written on. So I try to come at it as a whole thing. I'm an analyst, a writer, and a tester.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you, Jackie, for sharing your experience and your extreme knowledge. I'm a requirements fan, as you know. Thanks for coming, and the video will get posted shortly, guys. Thanks for everyone who had good questions.
Bye.
Bye.